Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a special short screencast-o-matic recording for the Lore-Webs, which is essentially the second half of Cycle 5. For this presentation, keep in mind all you have to do is write down the question and the answers that correspond with it, and remember to format your answers accordingly in a different color, and when you're finished, hit submit on Google Classroom. Please let's go ahead and get started to the first of two questions for this week. From 11.2 and 11.3, what is the Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses like, and what are some unique and noteworthy facts about Egyptian religion as a whole? For those of you guys who may not remember from doing the vocab assignment, a pantheon, in a sense, is just a family of deities or gods that are the center of a belief system. Most societies around the world who subscribe to polytheistic thought, in fact, have this notion that there's a complex relationship between gods and goddesses with one another. When we get to Greek mythology, which most students are more familiar with as opposed to Egyptian mythology, you might have heard some of these great stories between different forces in that pantheon. But the people in a polytheistic society often have a close, sometimes superstitious relationship with these deities, and they act on them accordingly, and they might have different holidays or traditions that honor them accordingly. Sometimes these gods have epic stories of similar themes pertaining to war, overcoming adversity, tragedy, and love, and more. So Egyptians have worshipped, historically speaking, these deities out of identity, love of culture and country, sometimes fear, and just tradition. But Egypt today is largely a monotheistic society. Most Egyptians might say that they are in fact Muslim. And of course, with elements of polytheism sprinkled in their culture, there of course are many Egyptians who subscribe to polytheistic thought today and honor these gods and goddesses accordingly. The next question here is from 11.5 and 11.6. What is Egypt like as a country today, and what is the culture of this country like now as well? So let's go to understand a little bit more about the making of modern Egypt. In this lesson, we're going to look at some of the events that made modern Egypt today. Egypt through the years has developed and evolved through different periods and times. There's no mistake to understand here that Egypt is in a interesting location, shall we say, between the upper right-hand part of Africa and, of course, it's really the gateway to the Middle East, too. And this has worked for it and against it. For example, most students know by their junior year that there have been long-standing issues between Egypt and Israel over holy lands and claims to different parts of the peninsula. So we're going to look at that a little bit later. Egypt has experienced tough stages of colonization by European superpowers. Without going too much into detail here, you might be aware of the fact that Africa as a whole has been divided up by European superpowers after the Berlin Conference, and Egypt, of course, was not immune to that. In this way, the Brits and the French who try to control Egypt have dramatically impacted their history accordingly. Egypt has put in place strong leaders over time who revitalized their government, their economy, their military, and their unified nationalistic culture. And this has brought benefits. We should be fair here, though, that there have also been some drawbacks to this type of model of governance as well. In fact, recent times have seen the overthrow of strongman dictators and leaders and a push for more democratic reforms and values. If you recall learning about an event called the Arab Spring, this is essentially the social and political phenomenon where most people in the Arab world overthrew their dictators and governments and demanded more democratic ideals. Now, although you might think this is good, nowadays Egypt struggles to balance democratic ideals and navigating their own course of history. So the big question that they have to ask themselves is, what does the future look like, understanding democracy, but also at the same time putting in place people in government who can carry forth good, wholesome reforms and ideals that we as a Western culture, I'm sure, would like to see. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you found this to be really helpful. Please remember to hit submit when you are fully finished. Thank you.